Pompey Sound, your hourly update from Fratton Park, sponsored by Piglet's Pantry, the home of award-winning and handmade food on the South Coast.
Hello, I'm in the staggeringly good, you can tell by the noise around me. It's about an hour to go to the game, and I'm with my old friend Barry, who I've talked to before pre-match, and Richard Hollidge, who is a journalist, a man who once interviewed me for the Times, I think, and somehow got it through, and it was published, and he's still writing, of course, and he's going to talk to us today, which is a great honour. We're very happy to talk to you, Richard. So the first thing I'll ask you is, how do you feel today about the situation that we're in, and what are your hopes?
But I work on the basis that I have very few hopes, and I've been sharing in our Pompey London WhatsApp group that we're going to be relegated. Sorry about this. And I can't see us winning more than maybe one game, drawing another before the end of the season. But I'm a pessimist, which means that come 5-15, I might be happy.
That's a wonderful answer, and very depressing. But it does mean that you aren't going to be too disappointed, which I am certainly going to be. We've made a lot of changes today. Any thoughts about the changes? I know you've only just digested them, but any thoughts about that, Richard?
Well, I mean, clearly we've suffered in the middle of the defence, haven't we? So it sounds like Atkinson, I've only seen him for about 10 minutes, must be an improvement. I don't know enough about Hayden to comment, but I mean, if we can keep the middle of the field or the middle of the back of the field intact, that would make a hell of a difference. But we have to remember the Derby, I think, have won 4 out of their last 5, and I think we might have lost 4 out of our last 5. Pessimism. That's what we want.
Oh, I'm not going to ask you any more questions, Sound. This is too depressing. It's lovely to talk to you, Richard.
Great.
Richard, who are you writing for these days? Can you just tell us?
I write for a couple of small ones called The New European, which is a post-anti-Brexit outfit. A bit of a lost cause, that, but never mind. They pay me occasionally.
I thoroughly recommend you to seek him out. He's a fantastic writer. Let me just talk to Barry for a moment. He's sitting here with a newly published book under his arm, because he's just become an author. I can't remember the details of the book. Just remind me of the book before you tell us about Pompey.
It's a book called From Dorset Gallows to Van Diemen's Land.
It's a book all about 2 guys who get transported from Portsmouth, as it happens, all the way to Tasmania, and it's a good job it doesn't happen these days, because it's a pretty horrible business. Barry, just before we go, I hope you're not as pessimistic as Richard.
Well, I'm a bit nervous, I must admit, but it should be a cracking atmosphere today, because there's not going to be any empty seats at all.
No, that's one thing for sure.
Yeah, so I'm sure that all of us in the crowd will do our bit to try and get the result that we really need. Yeah.
It's absolutely mobbed here today, Sounders, I can tell you that, and it's going to be a worrying afternoon, but those 5 changes certainly interesting and brave, and we've got to support them now. We've got them, and we've got the big fellas back, and we've got to hope that we can pull something out of the bag today. But we'll talk later, Sounders. Play out Pompey.
So 5 changes, eh? Can't remember 5 changes going back a long time, except going into minor midweek cup games. And I say minor advisedly, because although a lot of people think that they're very important, and it is nice to go to Wembley, they are minor compared to the league, which is everything. And I can't remember 5 changes, even changes forced upon us for a long time. And those 5 changes, well, they're kind of, some of them are obvious and some of them are a bit of a surprise. It's hard to know what Christian Sadie has done to work himself into the starting lineup, except we know what sort of a game he can bring. We know he's reliable. We know that he puts himself about. We know that he's a presence. So we know what he can do. dropping Waddingham effectively for Sadie is probably not a surprise, but it leads one to wonder whether the lineup that we sent out, including the subs, against Coventry was a feint by the manager, and the things that he said subsequently were also a feint, because he was talking about Waddingham possibly retaining his place and Pompey possibly going 2 up front at home to Derby. And that's going to make Derby think. It's got to. Absolutely got to. So we've now got something of a presence on the pitch that we didn't have before. We've got some big men. Atkinson can look after himself. Ogilvie at left back. Could argue that Bramall's unlucky, but he did draw the ire of our manager after the game, who felt that he complicated things when going for that header in the 93rd and a half minute, along with Ogilvie. But it would be harsh to drop a player who played well, particularly going forward. His defending seems to be 100%, maybe not as 100% as Ogilvie, but it's pretty good enough. Going forward, he's a real asset, and he links up very well with Murphy, doesn't he? So he can possibly count himself lucky. Ouchish. I think a lot of people watching the game against Coventry were straining at the bit for him to actually become cutting edge, and he always looks good. And he's doing a lot of chasing around. But you can't say that he's winning a lot of ball. You can't say that his press is of great concern to opponents with the ball, or hanging around hoping to provide support for players with the ball. He hasn't quite got that aspect, that dimension of his game yet, nor has he quite got the cutting edge that we talked about. So he probably wasn't too surprised to find out that he doesn't start. Matt Ritchie, you've got to have him. You've got to have him, not just because of everything that he does on and off the ball. His command on the pitch is huge. He's just working his arms, pointing, waving, gesticulating to get the very best out of his teammates. He is a proper leader on the pitch, and he brings so much more than his excellent game. So no surprise to see him back. He's also a big game player, and this is a big game. OK, it's not a top-of-the-table clash, but it is a big game. And Matt Ritchie has been there, done that, got the T-shirt, knows about big games, has the experience, has the temperament for it, and knows what it takes. So I think with Matt Ritchie on the side starting, OK, we may not get more than 68 minutes out of him, but he's going to be perhaps the difference. Perhaps he's going to be turn out to be the asset in terms of the result that we know that he is. So 5 changes against Derby. Here we go. So when they went in at half-time 0-0, there'd been a full nearly 45 minutes since the penalty incident and the penalty miss. But the penalty incident, I think, was still the highest thing on everyone's mind. There'd been some action. There'd been quite a lot of slugfests out there, quite a lot of heavy-duty tackles from both sides. We're always pleased to see our team getting stuck in and aggrieved when the other team are getting stuck in, but that's football. There was a lot of thud and blunder through the first half, and there was a good chance for Derby to score, a good chance for us to score, maybe a couple of good chances for us and for them. And those things kind of, would tend to colour your view about how the game might end up, because it's very important for both sides how the game ends up. There was talk in the commentary box. Andrew Moon and Guy Whittingham were saying perhaps a point will be good enough for both sides. We want to win, don't we? And they want to win, but they don't want to lose, and we don't want to lose. We really don't want to lose this one. So a point would not be too bad. It might mean that we've got to entertain Hull on the last day of the season and get something out of that, but we're still in there fighting if that's the case. So we are looking forward to the second half as they come in for the at the end of the first half. But the penalty, well, I would say it was 75 to 80% a sending off offence. And so a different keeper would have faced the ball, and that might have made a difference. And a different keeper would have faced Christian Sadie bearing down on him, tried to poke it through the keeper's legs, didn't quite come off. And that might have had a different ending. A couple of occasions when they came close, those efforts could have had different endings, but it ended 0-0, and it really should have been 1-0 at least, because Richie was through. If he'd been allowed to carry on, he would have just tapped it into the back of the net, backheeled it, if you like, do a Jimmy Greaves. But he was prevented from doing that by Atko. Now, I've been able to see it again and again, and it looks to me as though the goalkeeper leaves his leg high. Richie's got the ball on the ground, and Richie takes it past him on the ground, and yet the keeper's leg is stretched out 2 feet above the ground because he just wants to catch Richie in that way. So it's a deliberate attempt to bring Richie down, and it's not a deliberate attempt to play the ball. So it is a red card. Now, the referee's an interesting guy. He's obviously got an enormous potential because he was the one of the youngest people ever to referee a match in the EFL, age 25. His appearance doing that was billed as follows. He is the youngest ever referee from the black community. That's how it gets said there. That was 2 years ago. To referee a game in the EFL. And he is actually an extremely competent. It's so obvious he's going places. He's going to be refereeing Premier League matches. He's going to be refereeing FA Cup finals. He's going to be refereeing World Cup matches. It's as simple as that. He's that good. He's very cool. He thinks long and hard and yet blows the whistle quite quickly for those 50-50s. And in a game like this, in a game where they're scrapping it out, so many of those 50-50s, both sides are fouling each other. Both players are going in and they are both committing a foul. And those are the really hard decisions to make, because whoever you give the foul to, you are going to aggrieve the 11 players on the receiving end of it and, of course, the fans. And if it's the home fans and if it's a vociferous home fans, then you're going to get some stick. And you're aware that your assistant referees are going to get some stick as well, because you have earned some stick, but you're in the centre circle. You can't hear it. They can. So you're aware of all of these things. And yet he is showing a maturity out there in all black that is going places. So what's his name? Ruben Ricardo? We ain't heard the last of him. He might actually turn out to be the most accomplished person in football on the pitch in the fullness of time. And he's having a pretty good game. But, of course it was a penalty. But I think when he looks it back, he'll say, you know what? I think if I'd been able to see it from all these angles and with the slow-mo and the rest of it, I should have red carded him. And we would have gone in with at least one goal against us. So it's such an injustice, isn't it? When a player is definitely going to score. Matt Ritchie was definitely going to score. There was a campaign a few years ago for a thing called, now what is it? Something or other penalty. The idea was that if you were going to score, but you were definitely going to score. Oh no! Wait a minute! It was for a foul outside the area. You could give a sort of vouchsafed penalty. So if the foul took place outside the penalty area, but it was sufficiently significant, then you could give a penalty. And that adjustment of the rules went by the wayside. But for sure, Ritchie was going to score. He would have scored if he hadn't been brought down. So the rewards for the keeper and for Derby were completely unjustifiable. They should have been 1-0 down because Ritchie was through and he should have scored. We missed the penalty, partly because their keeper stayed on. Now, during half-time, and they're coming out now, so I'll crack on. I would presume that there was a discussion had between the officials along those lines, and it might just be that we will pick up a few more decisions in our favour than we might have done without that incident, because that is how football works, and that's how officiating can also work. Anyway, they're back out on the pitch, on with the game. Pompey 0, Derby 0, but Pompey spiritually 1-0 up. At the final whistle, which was, 99 minutes, 100 minutes, John Messino was seen, caught on camera, actually looking quite relieved, happy to take the point, because, of course, we had to come from behind, unnecessarily, perhaps, but we did have to come from behind, and we did come back from behind. Unbelievably, really, in the way in which we came back from behind in terms of the goals that we scored, but that's all for analysis a little bit later on. The point is now it's 5 o'clock on the afternoon of Pompey 2, Derby 2. And what an exhilarating, exhausting, draining, fantastic, disappointing afternoon it was. It's why we love football. And Pompey seemed to serve it up to us as often as just about any other side in English football. Standout moments from the second half. We talked about the first half elsewhere, but standout moments in the second half, of course, there was a standout whole thing, and that was Atkinson. Absolutely unbelievable. The heart, the fight, the commitment, the effort, and the ability that he showed in what he did. Marred, of course, by an own goal, which came about because he was trying so hard to defend. And we've seen so many of those sorts of own goals, haven't we, where the centre-half stretches enormously to try and cut the ball out and it goes into the net. So it's not an unusual scenario, that kind of an own goal. We need to go back to the moment before the cross came in that he turned into our net to decide just who could have done a little bit better in preventing that cross coming in, because professional football clubs like Pompey, and like all of them, work very hard, not just on stopping people getting the shot in, shot blocking, but also stopping people providing the service that makes it possible for a colleague to get the shot in. Getting the cross in, you're supposed to try to make sure that your opponent doesn't get the cross in, and the cross came in. So Pompey will look at that. They'll be looking at absolutely everything. But where do we feel? Where do we feel? What do we feel? At the moment, as I understand it, we're down to 18th, with Oxford moving above us on 48 points. We're 46 points. This may be subject to update because Cardiff are playing late due to a medical incident in the crowd. And of course, we must say out loud, we must remember things like that are even more important than football. So whatever that medical emergency is or was, we hope that it came out. We hope that it came out good. So Cardiff at the moment, they're the ones that are chasing us, and they are now 3 points behind us at this moment in time, but they're still playing on 43 with a goal difference of 20, and we have a goal difference of 16, which could turn out to be so significant. Stoke are underneath us, a point behind us on the same number of games. Hull have a game in hand at the moment, but they are 2 points behind us on 44. And Derby, who we entertained today, and, take everything away, it was a very entertaining game, albeit a bit of a slugfest. 12 yellows were there? Something like that. That means people are trying. Derby are 3 points behind us as things stand. So we'll have more analysis for you in different places on Pompey Sound as the day progresses through Saturday and into Sunday. Mick Robertson will be here with his update on Sunday morning. But we'll also be getting some neutral match reports. Can't imagine you'll hear anything that you don't already know at those things. And maybe perhaps some words from John Messino. Wouldn't it be good to get some words from Atkinson? But we'll see what happens. We'll see what we're provided with. OK. Pompey 2, Derby 2. This is Pompey Sound.
Atkinson scored both of Portsmouth's goals on the way to netting an unwanted hat-trick, as Pompey claimed a draw with relegation rivals Derby County at Fratton Park. The central defender grabbed the stoppage-time equaliser, having earlier cancelled out Jerry Yates's opener for the Rams. That first goal on his return from injury was then quickly followed up by an own goal, which had appeared to have the visitors on course for a crucial victory in their battle to avoid the drop. But on a chaotic afternoon for Atkinson, he met a searching long ball from goalkeeper Nicholas Schmid to make it 2-2 in the 91st minute. It was a thrilling finish to an already entertaining game which started with Derby goalkeeper Jacob Zetterstrom saving Colby Bishop's penalty kick after conceding the spot kick himself by bringing down Matt Ritchie. Derby's Marcus Harness went closest to breaking the deadlock in the first half with an effort that came off the woodwork, and the Rams eventually had to settle for a share of the points that keeps them one place above the drop zone. Cardiff City's defeat by Stoke City means Derby move 1 point clear of the bottom three, while Portsmouth are a further 3 points ahead in 19th spot with 4 matches remaining. After a last-gasp goal cost them against the Sky Blues, Portsmouth went looking for a fast start in this relegation scrap. But despite Bishop stepping up for an early penalty, Zetterstrom made amends for conceding the spot kick with a foul on Matt Ritchie by making a crucial save in the game of high stakes. Derby's goalkeeper went on to make another decisive first-half save, keeping Christian Sadie out after the striker weaved his way through the Rams' backline. In between Zetterstrom's saves, Derby had 2 chances to open the scoring themselves. Craig Forsyth blazed an effort over from 7 yards, before a cross-come shot from Harness hit both the underside of the crossbar and inside of the post against his former side. A headed clearance from Regan Poole denied Derby's Ibu Adams from breaking the deadlock with a first-time effort in first-half stoppage time, while Pompey goalkeeper Schmid tipped a looped header from Forsyth over the bar after the interval. 3 goals in 5 hectic minutes, during which Atkinson found the back of the net at both ends after Yates broke the deadlock with a header, had Derby closing in on what would have been only their 3rd win on the road this season. But Atkinson's second-headed goal of the afternoon, with his own goal coming off his boot when trying to deal with a Caden Jackson cross, sent Fratton Park into a frenzy.
John Messino after the game.
Yeah, I think a bit of relief. Probably sat here now making sure that first of all we didn't lose the game. That was the most important thing, and staring down the barrel towards the back end of the game. We obviously wanted to win the game today. We thought it was an important game to win, but the most important thing was to not lose, and we managed to come away without losing, without being overly negative. And I think when you look at the way that the game played out, we might have been sat in here going, "Oh, it's just one of those days. We missed the penalty." We largely dominate the game, largely dominate possession, but we don't come out the back of it with anything to show for. So really pleased that we got back in the game, and we have to take the point and move on. I think it's going to be a big point for us. I thought he was excellent today. I thought he was really good. He's unlucky with the own goal, but even if you take the goals out of it, so if you take Rob's 2 goals out of it to come back after a lengthy spell out, we're pushing him. So it originally went from probably 10-15 minutes earlier in the week to thinking, okay, we're going to need a bit more from Rob, we're going to start him. 60 minutes was the mark. We were thinking about taking him off, and we decided not to. You could probably see why towards the back end of the game, because we had to put Rob up front. But yeah, maybe not a bad spot for him because he came up with the equaliser. Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to know Rob probably with a bit more depth than some of the other players that we've brought in, because I obviously played with him, so always knew that was going to be something that was a big strength of his character, his willingness to play for the team. And let's have it right, Rob didn't have to do that. Rob's a Bristol City player next season, and he's had 2 years worth of serious injuries, and there was no way that he needed to come back and do what he did today, because ultimately in 4 games' time he's going back to Bristol City, but he's risked his body today, and very, very appreciative of that. Well, we created a couple of good opportunities. Obviously, the penalty, Christian Sadie's chance as well. So we did have a couple of good chances. Matty was in behind and he was brought down for the free kick as well. And it was more about just making sure that we didn't go too direct too early, but also when Derby pressed, we tried to open them up and making sure that we were locked off at the back end. Derby posed a threat, I thought, in the first half as well. Fairly even game. We were obviously disappointed that we didn't go ahead with the penalty, but quite tight and even. And the message was, let's make sure that we don't make any mistakes. Let's make sure we don't invite Derby into the game. And that was a frustration with the first goal. It comes from us conceding a really poor free kick in front of Derby's bench. And next thing you know, we're defending a long throw and the ball's in the back of our net. These are the things we have to be a lot better at as a team. Probably the thing that I take from the game the most is the fact that after Wednesday night as well, big kick in the teeth for the boys Wednesday night, conceding with 10 seconds to go in the game, to come back from what we came back from today against a very, very resolute, defensively solid Derby side. I think you look at Derby going a goal ahead with, what was it, 5 minutes to play, most people would have thought, okay, there's no chance we're going to be able to open them up, and to be able to do that was really, really pleasing. The lads kept going, the subs made a difference, and like we saw some of the players out there were absolutely dead on their feet.